សូមជើញអង្គុយ
Present, please be seated. The court is now in session and the floor is given to the co-prosecutor to resume the questioning. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. We were talking about the meeting that you have described in your DC CAM interview, the meeting at which you believe there was discussion of a plan to attack Phnom Penh. Where was it that this meeting took place? Can you describe where the location was and whether the meeting was in a building or whether it was held outside?
I do not know.
Do you remember whether the meeting was held inside or was it a meeting held outside?
I do not know, as I said.
I believe you testified earlier that there were about 100 people at this meeting. Is that correct?
How could I tell you if I do not know?
You said that you did not recall much about the meeting because you were far away at the back. How far away were you from the speaker, and were you able to hear what was being said, or were you too far away to understand what was being said at the meeting?
I do not know.
Mr. Witness, do you remember as you sit here whether you could hear anything that was said at this meeting or whether you were too far away to hear what was being discussed?
I did not attend the meeting.
Sorry, perhaps there's an interpretation issue. I've actually noticed for a while that the word "at the back" apparently is used when he means I wasn't at the front, but somewhere, yeah. So perhaps it's worth clarifying this interpretation.
Yes, as the judge has indicated, this morning you said you were at the back during this meeting. Were you actually at the meeting at the back of the room, or were you not at the meeting at all?
I did not attend the meeting.
I'll come back to that a little later. I want to ask you now about another thing that was in your DC CAM interview that the defense counsel asked you today. which was your involvement in transporting a truck of weapons. When was it that you transported this truck of weapons? Was it before the meeting with Ta'un, or was it after that meeting? When was it that you transported this truck of weapons?
I myself did not transport the weapons. I was simply an ordinary combatant.
Who?
No objection. Mr. President, request to have the doors closed. I note something very peculiar in the answers of this witness, and I would like to be able to request the chamber as to whether the witness had any contacts. I think Wesu should be involved. So I think maybe it's a wise idea to close the doors.
Sorry, are you asking for a closed session? Because we are hearing closed doors.
Yes, yes.
And the reason, because as you know, we need a reason to go into closed session? Or can you only give us the reason in a closed session?
Well, the sudden change in the nature of his answers made me stand up and request for a brief period to have the doors closed, as to see if something happened during lunch with this witness.
I don't understand why we need to go in closed session. I have no objection if the bench wishes to ask him any questions at this time as to whether he had any contacts at lunchtime, but I don't understand why we need to go in closed session.
Well, if we're going to ask that question, then his inclination to answer that in an open session might be smaller than his inclination to answer that in a closed session.
President, you have the floor now. Judge Fence.
The chamber rejects the request to go into closed session. The mere fact that the witness has changed his testimony isn't sufficient reason for this, and furthermore, the additional allegation or indication that something might have been said over lunch has been said now in open session, so that defeats the purpose of a closed session.
President, you may now resume your questioning, Mr. Co-Prosecutor.
Mr. Witness, you described to DC Cam some information about a truck of weapons that was transported. If you did not transport that truck of weapons, who did, and how did you hear about it?
I heard from other soldiers about that issue.
And do you know where the weapons were picked up and where they were transported to? Do you know any details such as that?
I do not know any detail. That's why I said I do not know, and I cannot find the answer for you.
And the meeting that is described in your DC Cam interview, at which Division Secretary Un purportedly talked about a plan of a coup or to attack Phnom Penh. If you weren't present at that meeting, how did you hear about it? From whom did you hear about this supposed meeting?
I learned about the attacks, but I did not know the plan, the exact plan, and the date when the attack would happen.
Do you remember how it is you learned about this, or who you heard this information from?
I learned from my unit.
Who in your unit told you about this?
They have all passed away.
I understand. Do you remember the name or names of the persons who told you about this meeting?
I am not able to recall their name or names.
And do you remember approximately when it was that this meeting took place? I'm not asking you for a month or year, but if you could tell us when the meeting took place in relation to the time that Ta Un was arrested. Was Un arrested a few days after this meeting? Was it weeks after the meeting, or was it months after the meeting that Ta Un was arrested?
I do not know either about this issue.
Defense counsel asked you this morning whether you remembered a meeting at which the tape-recorded confession of Division Secretary Un was played. And I want to see if I can refresh your recollection on that by reading to you an excerpt from your DC Cam interview. Your Honors, this is document E3/7535, Khmer ERN 000-87827, English 003241764, French 00324-217. And this is what you indicated in your interview with DC Cam. Question: did you know where Ta-un was transferred to? Answer: later on, we were called to a meeting and got informed about that. They said that your boss was accused as a traitor and arrested. Question: who called for that meeting? Answer: I had no clue about his name. His eyes were so red and fierce. Question: what did he say? Answer: he said, you attempted to attack Phnom Penh. Now your boss was arrested. Then he played a recorded cassette. He wanted us to hear Ta-un's voice. Question: what did Ta-un say? Answer: he said he had betrayed Pol Pot many years ago, since the coup d'etat in 1970. I could not remember the entire cassette. End of quote. Mr. Witness, does that refresh your memory? Do you remember a meeting after Un's arrest, led by a man who you described as having fierce and red eyes, at which they played a tape recording of Un's confession? Do you remember this?
I do not remember it. I cannot recall it.
Mr. Witness, is it possible that the information you remember about a supposed plot involving Un, involving Khoi Tun, Chakri, is it possible that this information came from a meeting at which the new heads of the division played a tape of Un's confession? Is that where you may have obtained some of your information about these events?
I have responded to all the questions, so what else can I say?
Well, Mr. Witness, we're trying to understand why you made some of your statements to DC Cam about a supposed plot to attack Phnom Penh. And my question is a simple one. Is it possible that some of that information that you conveyed to DC Cam came from what you were told by the people who took over the division and people who played a recording of Un's confession?
I do not know.
Mr. Witness, I want to ask you about a few documents that are pertinent to these issues. First, Your Honors, I would like to read an excerpt to the witness from document E3/810, E3/810. These are the minutes of a 19 September 1976 Division Secretaries meeting in which Division 310 Secretary Un reported to Son Sen and others at the meeting at what was going on in his division. The specific ERNs, Khmer 00052-393 to 394, English 00195 344 through 45, French 00195 359 to 360. Mr. Witness, this is a document recording a report made by your division secretary in September 1976 to Son Sen and the other division commanders. And in paragraph 4 of Un's report in this document, he discussed the health situation in your division and reported as follows, quote, 2,600 brothers are sick, of whom 400 are seriously ill and cannot work. Continuing further, this month 7 persons in the special unit and the artillery unit died. The causes: mosquito bites, drinking dirty water, and living in malarial areas like Kop Srao, Poon Phnom. And in the next paragraph, Un reported, all food supplies will have been eaten during this September. End of quote. Mr. Witness, I ask you about this excerpt because you have indicated that your unit was at some point sent for tempering to the Kop Srao site. My question, it was in September 1976 that Un told his superiors that Kop Srao was a malaria area. When was it that your unit was transferred to Kop Srao? Was it before September 1976 or after? Do you remember when it is that you were transferred to this area, Kop Srao?
After the commander of the division had been arrested.
And the other part of this report I wanted to ask you about, in paragraph 6 of the same report that Secretary Un made to Son Sen and others at the 19 September 76 meeting, he said the following: after re-education, there has been strong internal struggle. Part of the party members and cadres are not yet loyal and are looking to betray the party, unsatisfied and unhappy with the 4-year plan of the party. End of quote. The reason I ask you about this, Mr. Witness, your DC Cam interview, some of the statements read by the defense counsel suggest that Un was involved in plotting a coup against the party. Yet in this document, Un is openly telling Son Sen that there are cadres in his division that are unhappy with the party policies and looking to betray the party. Do you have any reaction to this? If Un was actually involved in a secret plot against the party, why would he draw the party's center's attention to his division by reporting that there were cadres looking to betray the party? Do you have any reaction to this document and information?
I object.
President, you may now proceed to counsel for Mr. Nunjia.
I object to this question. The witness cannot possibly say what was in Un's mind during this meeting. And obviously, if Un was involved in attempting a coup d'etat, he was not going to tell Son Sen of of all people, that he was involved in this. So the question doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But besides this, he's asking for speculation. He doesn't know what Un was thinking or saying during this meeting.
Perhaps you can reformulate, because the way it was phrased really asked for speculation.
Let me rephrase, Your Honor. Here we have a document from mid-September 1976 in which your division secretary reports to Son Sen that there are cadres in the division unhappy with the party's policies who are looking to betray the party. Do you remember whether after this, in late 76 or early 77, there was a representative from Son Sen's office who was assigned to monitor the party, to review biographies, and to look for traitors in the party? Do you remember a period of time where your division was reviewed and monitored by the General Staff?
I cannot recall it, since at the time I was farming rice at Kapsro.
Let me ask you specifically about the name of the person from the General Staff who had this assignment. Your Honors, there are a number of documents that record Representative Ren, who has testified in the first trial, documents from November 1976 and March 1977, in which he is reporting on efforts to monitor the division. That is documents E3 1131 and E3 1161. And in this trial, or in the first trial, he testified that he had in fact been assigned to observe and monitor the internal activities of these divisions. You'll find that on the 10th of January 2013 at 10:16 in the morning. My question to you, Mr. Witness, do you remember a person named Ren from the General Staff who came to monitor your division on behalf of the General Staff and who met with all the units? Do you remember this person?
No, I don't.
Let me ask you about something else, Mr. Witness. I asked you this morning about whether there were combatants, many combatants in your division who were arrested and who disappeared after Ta'un. I want to ask you about one specific person. Your Honors, with your leave, I'd like to provide to the witness an S-21 list. It's E3/9954, and the specific page that I will refer the witness to is Khmer 01012060. This is one of the documents underlying the new OCIJ list. So with your leave, may I provide E3/9954 to the witness?
President, court officer, please bring the document to the witness.
Now I've marked the person. I've marked the person whose name I would like you to look at. He is number 34 on that page. Oops. Excuse me. Name Orn Chorn, identified as a combatant of Company 1, Battalion 112, your company, your battalion. He entered S-21 on the 14th of July, 1977, and was executed on the 16th of July, 1977, as recorded in this document. He also appears as number 5009 in the OCIJ list. My question to you, Mr. Witness, do you remember this person from your company, Orn Chorn? And if so, what can you tell us about him and his arrest?
I do not know this person.
Do you remember any of the people in your company being arrested and disappearing during the Khmer Rouge regime, and specifically in 1977?
Commanders of those battalions and companies had been arrested. Only the combatants were not.
Let me try turning to a completely new subject, Mr. Witness, and that is any contact you had with senior leaders of the regime. During the time you were based in Phnom Penh with Division 310, did you see any of the leaders of the regime at meetings at Olympic Stadium or elsewhere? And if so, can you tell the court about that?
I never attended any meeting held at the Olympic Stadium.
Did you ever see Khieu Samphan during the years that you were in Phnom Penh with Division 310?
I did not see that since I was at the outskirts of the city, and I did not live in the middle of the city at all.
Well, let me ask you then about something you said in your DC Cam interview, Your Honors. I'm going to read first from E3 7535, Khmer ERN 000878815 through 816, English 00324 166 through 67, French 00324 204 through 05. This is what you told DC Cam in this interview, Mr. Witness. Question: when they held meeting at the stadium, were you ever called to celebrate the victory? Answer: they celebrated the 7 January or 17 April victory at the stadium. Question: did you notice any top leaders attending that ceremony? Answer: yes, Khieu Samphan. And then continuing later in the interview on these same pages, after a discussion of whether the ceremony you attended was before or after Eun's arrest. Question: had they held any meeting at the stadium before he, referring to Eun, was arrested? Answer: I was sent to greet the guests there. A question: who did you have to greet? Answer: Khieu Samphan. Question, what did Q Samphan do there? Did you come to that meeting? Answer, yes, the meeting was at the school. Question, how many times did they hold meetings at the stadium? Answer, 3 times. Question, 3 times? How many times did you see Q Samphan? Answer, twice. End of quote. Does that refresh your memory, Mr. Witness? Did you see Q Samphan at ceremonies at Olympic Stadium?
I was a soldier at the battlefield and I did not attend that meeting.
Well, you also indicated in your DC Cam interview that during a period of time you were in charge of guarding, standing guard when foreign guests were being received. Did you do that while you were in Phnom Penh?
Yes, I did stand guard.
And when you were standing guard when foreign delegations or guests were being received, who were the leaders that were the Khmer Rouge leaders who were receiving those delegations?
I did not know. I was assigned to stand guard, and that's what I did.
Well, let me read to you another excerpt from your DC Cam interview, sir. E37535, Khmer ERN 000878820, English 00324 French 00324 208 through 209. Question, who were the Khmer Rouge top leaders in charge of greeting those foreign guests? Answer, I often saw Q Samphan. End of quote. Did you see Q Samphan greeting foreign delegations, Mr. Witness?
President, witness, please respond to the question. Witness, I did not know about that. I was the youngest soldier amongst my group.
Why did you tell DC Cam that you saw Q Samphan often if that wasn't the case, Mr. Witness?
I did not see him, so how could I say that I saw him?
Excuse me, just for interrupting. I normally don't do this, but I think it calls for it. Sir, when your DC Cam statement was done, after it was finished, did you read it?
I have read it.
Did you find anything that was incorrect after you have read the DC Cam statement?
It is consistent.
Well, the problem is that today you are telling us different stories when it comes, or stories that don't, or that are different from your DC Cam statement. And while in the morning you it was basically possible to refresh your memory, now in the afternoon you say, I didn't say that. So can I sum up? When you made your DC Cam statement, first of all, did you tell the truth then?
I told everything. I told all the truth.
I understand this is 10 years ago. So you told the truth and you read the statement after you were finished, true?
Yes, that is correct.
Everything was correct. You didn't have to correct anything.
I did not correct anything.
Then you will have to explain when you are asked why, if and why statements you make today differ from what you said 10 years ago. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge Fens. Mr. Witness, I've read to you some very specific references in your DC Cam interview in which you said that you saw Khieu Samphan both at Olympic Stadium, at meetings or ceremonies there, and when he was receiving foreign guests and you were working as a guard. Did that happen, or was the information you provided to DC Cam incorrect?
The statement is not that correct.
So the parts of the DC Cam interview in which you say that you met or that you saw Khieu Samphan are incorrect. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
And what about the parts of your DC Cam interview in which you describe being at a meeting with Ta Un where a plot was described? Is that correct? Or were you not actually at this meeting?
I never attended any meeting with the divisional commander. I was an ordinary combatant and I was not allowed to attend such a meeting.
Okay, let's turn to one more subject. You talked a little this morning about how in 1978 your unit was sent to the Eastern Battlefront to engage in combat with the Vietnamese army. During the time you were at the battlefront in 1978, were any Vietnamese soldiers captured? And if so, what was done with the Vietnamese soldiers who were captured?
I never arrested any Vietnamese soldier.
I wasn't asking about arresting. I was asking about soldiers who were captured in combat. Were you aware of Vietnamese soldiers being captured? And if so, what was done with them after they were captured?
I was at the real battlefield. How could I know about the capture of any Vietnamese soldiers?
Let me read to you then what you told DC Cam in interview E3 7535. Your Honors, this is Khmer ERN 000-87832, English 00324-180, French 00324-222. Question: during combat, did you capture any Vietnamese combatants? Answer: yes, we captured some. Question: what did you do to them? Answer: they were transported by truck to Phnom Penh. End of quote. Mr. Witness, is that part of your DC Cam interview accurate? Or were you not aware of the capture of Vietnamese soldiers?
I did not know anything about that. I did not know about any capture. What else can I say?
Then so you are telling us then that this part of your DC Cam interview is also incorrect. Is that right?
That is not that is not correct.
Sorry, you can't have it both ways. You just told me that your DC Cam statement was correct. And you know that because you read it before you signed it. And now you're telling us time and again that it is not correct. So which one is it?
It's not both. It's not two options. Obviously, something happened in the lunch break.
Let me first finish.
Something happened, and you should ask him. That's what the court is about. It's about proper proceedings. Something happened to him in lunch.
President, the chamber will take a 20-minute recess.